Hello everyone, welcome back to our Basics of Accounting with EQ 360 ERP series. Today we will learn how to create a payment entry in EQ 360 ERP. Along with that, we will also cover incoming and outgoing payment reconciliation. So we have created three purchase entry which we can see here in accounts payable and purchase invoice, and you can see the status is shown as unpaid. And we have also created two sales entry, and in here also you can see the status is unpaid. Now let's go back to the home. We have multiple options to access the payment entry in accounting module itself. First one is by clicking on accounts payable, and then here we can see the payment entry. And second one is account receivable, and here also we can see the payment entry. For any payment entry, we can follow any of these routes. So we will just click here. Now let's see our first transaction in the case study. Here in the first transaction, they receive 59,000 in cash from Messrs. Ram and Sons Electricals. So just pass the payment entry for this transaction. Now to create a new payment entry, we have to click on this plus icon here, and then we have to select the party type. As Mrs. Ram and Electricals were our customer, we have to select the customer here. Now in party, we will select Messrs. Ram and Sons Electrical, and now we can see the party balance is 59,000 here. Now we will select the account in which we are receiving the payment, which is the cash account. As in the first transaction, we were getting cash from Mrs. Ram and Sons Electricals. We can also select mode of payment here, which is cash. Okay. Now as the company is receiving cash, we do not have to fill this check reference number and check reference date. We also do not have to select the company's bank account, party's bank account, as this transaction doesn't involve any bank account. Okay. So now we will click on this get outstanding invoice to get all the invoices outstanding of Messrs. Ram and Sons Electricals. Here many filters have applied like posting date, due date and outstanding date. Now let's just click on get outstanding documents. Here there is only one sales invoice against Mrs. Ram and Sons Electricals. So this is appearing in front of the here. Now we will have to add the amount which we are receiving from Messrs. Ram and Sons Electricals. As we are receiving total 59,000 rupees, we do not have to change the amount here. Now let's just click on this right tick to save this payment entry, and finally click on this lock button to permanently submit this payment entry. Now our payment entry is permanently submitted. So now let's go to the sales invoice and check whether Messrs. Ram and Sons Electricals is showing paid or not. Okay, so let's just go to home from here. Then we will press Ctrl G and select sales invoice. We will click sales invoice list to open. Here now we can see that the status of Messrs. Ram and Sons Electricals is showing as paid, which means we have received the payment from Messrs. Ram and Sons Electricals. Okay. Now there might be a general question in our mind that why do we selected the payment entry? We could have also selected the journal entry in place of the payment entry. So we selected the payment entry because of its user-friendly interface. In AQ360 ERP, there is a very user-friendly interface for payment entry. A person who might not have the basic knowledge of accounting can also pass the entries using the payment entries, whereas the general entry requires a knowledge of the accounting in a person to pass the necessary entries. Now let's see our next transaction and how to pass that entry. Our next entry is a payment entry to our supplier, which is Global Electronics Limited. We have paid 2,65,000 to Global Electronics Limited in the full settlement of their dues, which means we have paid them 2,65,000 rupees. But we have to pay them, let's see on the above here, like we have to pay them 2,65,500, but we just pay them 2,65,000 rupees and we settle that invoice. So let's see how to pass this entry. The payment entry was although easy, but now let's make it more easier. Let's just go to the purchase invoices here by clicking on the purchase invoice list, and after that we have to select the Global Electronics Limited, the person whose dues we are going to clear. Now we will click on this create button and then we'll select payment from here only. Here you can see that a payment entry is already auto-filled. Now we just have to select the mode of payment. Here I'm selecting the mode of payment as cash because it was given in the entry. The account is also automatically selected to cash account. Now we can see the party's balance is negative 2,65,500. That means we have to pay 2,65,500 to Global Electronics Limited. Okay, so but we just paid only 2,65,000 rupees. So let's just change the amount here to 2,65,000 only. And you can see the allocated has also changed. But we have settled this invoice. So we will change this amount to 2,65,500. Now here we can see that the difference in the balance has been generated, which is negative 500. Now we have to select this 500 difference. So we can use right of difference amount and click on the right tick, and here our invoice is settled. Now just click on this lock button to permanently submit this account, this invoice. And there, the invoice is permanently submitted. But you can see it's not a write off, right? It was a discount which we received from our suppliers. So we need to change this. To change this, we need to first cancel this payment entry. So we will select this cancel and we will select yes. Now this payment entry got cancelled. Now we will just delete this write off account from here by clicking here. Okay, we need to click on this edit button first, and then I will just click here and then select this cross button to delete this right of difference account. Now I will add another account, which is discount received account, which we have already created during the time of the creation of the company. In the discount received account, I'll enter the amount as negative 500, and see the difference here has again become 0. Now in the cost center, we have to select the main, as we have not configured the cost center right now. Then we will again click on this right tick and this lock button to permanently submit the payment entry. And here our payment entry is permanently submitted. Now let's just go to the purchase invoice list and check whether our purchase invoice are paid or not. Here we can see the Global Electronics Limited is paid. We have paid only 2,60,000 to Global Electronics Limited, but the invoice of rupees 2,65,500 is got settled. So this is how we do the right of entry in the payment entry. Now we will see our transaction number 3 and we'll pass it very quickly now. Our transaction number 3 says that we have paid 3,56,800 to Buy Me Electricals Limited via bank. So this time we have to configure, or we have to pass a payment entry through bank only. So let's go to the payment entry and pass it very quickly. To quickly pass this entry, we will select Buy Me Electricals Limited, and then we will select Create, and then we will again select Payment, and here we have to select the mode of payment. This time is check. Now we have to enter the check reference number. We will write it as RTGS, and for the check reference date we will add the today's date. The amount is already pre-filled by the system, and now we just have to click on this tick to save this payment entry and this lock button to finally submit this payment entry. Now just click on yes and give the confirmation, and here we have just created a payment entry within some seconds. So this is why we prefer payment entry over the general entries. Now let's just go back and see whether it is paid or not. So we will click on the purchase invoice list, and here you can see that Buy Me Electricals is also paid now. Let's just go to the case study again to see the next transaction. In this fourth entry, we are receiving part payment, which is rupees 25,000 from All Consultants Private Limited. Let's just check how many balance we have to take from the All Consultants Private Limited. Okay, All Consultants Private Limited were our creditors, so we have to pay them. So we paid part payment, which is 25,000, to All Consultants Private Limited. So let's see how will we add this payment entry. Here we will select All Consultants Private Limited first, then we will click on Create again, and then we will click on payment. Here we can see we have to pay 59,000 to All Consultants Private Limited, but we are only paying them 25,000. So we will change the amount here to 25,000, and as it's not a full settlement and we have to pay this amount to later, we cannot allocate whole 59,000 here. So we will just click on this right tick to save, and here there is an error which is saying reference number and reference date are mandatory for bank transaction. Okay, so we do not add the reference number and reference date in this transaction. So let's just first select the mode of payment, which is check, and in the check reference number we will be writing RTGS again, and in the reference date we will add today's date, and we will just click on this right tick to save. Here our entry is being saved now. Now just click on this lock button to permanently submit. Give our confirmation, and here our payment entry is made. Now let's just go back and see what's the status of the All Consultants Private Limited. Here we can see that the All Consultants Private Limited is still showing unpaid, which means we have not paid them the full amount yet. So